So we're presenting to you a series on the art of growing food, wellness, interesting people who are involved in cultivating and presenting and in the business, and really the business of wellness. So what we have for this first one is a very dynamic team. And I'm going to introduce everyone to you after introducing myself. I didn't do that to start. So my name is Arlene, Sister Arlene, Sister Eileen, Auntie Arlene, or Empress Eileen. So you can call anything, basically. I'm coordinating this series on wellness and food and cultivating and how food impacts our lives as in our communities. Mainly looking at growing in this particular session, but we know without food, we won't live. And this COVID-19 pandemic has shown us the importance of having control and access and management of our own food as it comes into our bodies and our minds and our whole well-being. For today's session, what we've done is that we're starting with the soil. We're looking at the root. We're looking at the importance of cultivating, and we want to share that with you. We want to excite you and engage you and get you feeling that this is the greatest thing to do to make your own life and improve the quality of everything and your well-being. So we've got some experts to you, and I'm going to introduce them. So we have Paulette Henry from Black Roots. Paulette is here, and she's going to introduce herself, but Paulette is here in her capacity as an expert grower. She's our go-to, our person that when you are trying to grow your whatever, herbs, vegetables, put food in the ground and make it grow, Paulette can answer your questions. We have Rachel. Rachel is on the business side. In fact, Rachel and William are both on the business side, but Rachel is speaking to how those vegetables, those essential things, and the business of when you've grown the food, how you can put it together and looking at distribution channels. William is our business consultant, so he will introduce himself a little bit. And we have JB Rose with us today, and JB is going to speak to the preparation of food. So we're from the soil to the table to your bodies today. And we hope that you find this useful. Please put your comments and questions in the chat so that we can all get this together and we can give you really useful feedback. The Ubele initiative is concerned with how we as Black people, Asian people, people from different minorities, marginalized people control and capture and ensure that we have food, and we take those spaces, spaces of memory, spaces of community, spaces of how we work together. And Ubele gives support to building the capacity, to ensuring that we can draw on those when we need it. We have the resources where we can come together on that kind of a platform. So today it's about food. So you want to grow your own food. Enough chatting, Arlene. So let me introduce who first. Let's say Paulette. Can you just say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get to talking about a conversation, and then William and Rachel, and then I see JB is here, but we'll speak with her along the way.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Paulette, as been said. I have historically, my family have been growing food for quite some time. My grandfather grew food. He had a farm. My dad, when he came to this country, he grew food to feed our family of 8. And I have been kind of like seriously growing food maybe for the last 12 years. I think I was fortunate enough to meet an amazing mentor who taught me how to cultivate food that people would not necessarily think would grow in this country. she also introduced me to, you know, like some of the seeds that people wouldn't necessarily grow. I mean, there are kind of like 120 varieties of tomato, for example. So she introduced me to like a lot of new seeds.
So Paula, can I interject? This is a she. It was a woman who
It is
introduced you.
definitely a woman that has been, you know, what's been said. I mean, historically, women were the custodians of the seed. So you know, there has been. I mean, if you talk to Miss Pederman, then you'll realise that you know, some of the seeds that they have all over the world now were bought, that were plaited into women's hair to ensure that we had food as when they were captured as slaves and brought over. So yeah,
very interesting. And so it was. Did she invite you into her garden, or did she say, Paulette, come and?
I met her at a master gardener's course, and I think we were kind of like both there, kind of like raising our eyebrows, because you know there's a lot of things that as I said, historically we've been taught, but you know, she had been growing food for like she's been growing food for about 35 years. And she grows to sustain her family. So, you know, if she spends, I don't know, let's say she spends £10 a week outside of what she grows and makes herself, then it's quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, Paula, I have to go back a little bit more though, because, you know, one of the things that people always say, it's difficult to get young people into the garden nowadays. How did you even get to a master gardener's course and, you know, on that track as a young person? Is it, you know, you did it at school?
I wouldn't say that I was that young when I started, but I did the interest, and I started growing food. I started going a lot. I started helping elders to manage their allotments. I then went on to do a project myself, like set up a community growing space. But like after doing like a level 1 course, then I went on to do like the Master Gardener's course, and that's where I met my mentor Joan. And then
you're going to have to explain to everybody who's here what a level 1 course is about, you know, but also, you know, you it's to get young people in the garden nowadays, to get your hands in the soil. I mean, your family never said to you, what you doing, you know, growing things and you should be studying your books? Nobody said that to you?
No, I mean, but you know, I run workshops myself for young people, and I've been doing it, I don't know, since 2012. I've been running workshops for young people, but it's about how you present it. It's about, you know, letting young people know that food just doesn't just come from Sainsbury's. You know, it's about introducing them to the wonder of the seed. You know, it's about showing them, you know, we've done things where we've grown sunflowers, giant sunflowers, and the sunflower seeds are edible, and then they will be able to understand and see the amazement of the patterns that are in the head. They can understand the mathematics that goes into it, but it's also about them, you know, being able to walk around in the space and taste things. You know, because
so suppose I want you to teach me, or I suppose I want to learn how to grow food. Where do I go to do that, you know?
I at the moment I've got quite a few people on my WhatsApp on my phone that phone me up and they do WhatsApp things, and like they show me their gardens, or they phone and ask me questions and so on. But Black Roots has been doing, we did a plant sale last year, and we've got people that came to that plant sale that are now, you know, staying in contact with us.
Right.
We are hoping to look at some more some like online training, as well as, you know, when COVID lifts, then we'll be doing some more.
So sorry again, I keep interrupting you. So Black Roots is a group of growers in Haringey, right? At Wolves Lane.
Yes. Yeah.
And if I want seeds and if I want more information, I come to Wolves Lane?
Yeah, but what would have to happen is that because of COVID, Rules Lane at the moment isn't totally accessible. So it might be useful for people to send to get to us through Ubele. Maybe it'd be best to go through Ubele, because Ubele is at the moment incubating Black Roots. So it's best to go through Ubele to be in contact with us.
Right. So Black Roots, if I look at Black Roots, I'm going to find a lot of growers from mostly Caribbean heritage, right?
Yeah.
But there is some Asian heritage, and they can help me grow my chocho and my yam.
Definitely so, quite definitely so. Chocho, yam, there's lots of different things. I mean, the simple things like people have grown, some of the people have grown dasheen, some people have grown sorrel, which is hibiscus, the hibiscus flowers that people use during the festive season. There's just an array of food that can be grown. And as I said, really a lot of the growers in this country only use 10% of the seeds that are available to them. So
really, so I could get seeds from Wolves Lane as well. Could I get seeds from you at Black Root?
At the moment, we're developing a seed bank. But because Ubele Black Roots has been in existence like 2 years, so what you can do is we will be advertising our plant sales. So we'll have our plant sales hopefully by the end of April, and you can come along to Wolves Lane. It'll be marketed on the Wolves Lane website, and you can come along and get some information, get some unusual plants as well. And we'll hopefully take you from there.
Right. But Paulette, what you said is that before everybody else came in the room, you said you had just come in from planting. Is there a time to plant? Tell me about if I want to grow something in my garden. No.
It's like now. I mean, there are things that are in now, but a lot of the seeds that we're planting, for instance, if you're planting, if you wanted chilies, for example, the hotter the chili is, the earlier you'll have to grow it, because it takes longer to grow that chili to accommodate the heat.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people who started propagating their chili plants in December even, but you have to do everything inside. You have to do it under lights, for example. There's lots of things now that we're starting up, lots of seeds, like the tomatoes are starting, the okra, we're starting, New Zealand spinach, lots of different chocho are coming now, that they're just shooting now. So there's lots of different things. I mean, now there'll be spinach in the garden, there'll be garlic in the garden, there'll be greens. We grow there'll be broccoli in the garden now. Just thinking what else. Broccoli, spinach, there'll be leeks in some gardens.
So is there you're planting now to reap?
Well, those things that I mentioned will be some of those will be things that you planted from August of last year straight through to the garlic would probably have gone in. Some people put their garlic in November, some people put broad beans in November, December, and then they'll come up for this season, because what you don't want to do is to have that kind of like what they call the hunger gap. So you want to have food that will kind of like take you like across the year, and some of the kales will do that. There are a number of different types of kale that will also like take you across the time.
Okay, Black Roots. How would I contact you? Is that the contact now going through Ubele, goes through us, or it goes to?
Yeah, at the moment the contact is going through Ubele. So if you go onto the Ubele initiative, go onto their website. Then you can leave a message
because someone was asking about Instagram, and I think that's coming on board, isn't it? That would lead into what William is doing.
So I think it's when you're a grower, you want to grow food, right? So the Insta, the Facebook, all of that kind of thing will be coming soon.
And that's the kind of support and partnership that we have with Ubele and the growers. Yeah. Because, you know, when you're a grower, as Paulette says, you're just growing.
You want to
so when we do when we do these series, the next one, Paul, we will come with the plant and show you tell you a little bit more about the soil, because people sometimes get confused with this organic growing and organic food and ordinary, and what it takes to, what does it mean when you go into the supermarket and somebody says organic, you know? So we'll explain a little bit more in details. What we want to do now is to give you a whole introduction. So Paula, just to be clear, the things that you are planting now will not be ready until next year?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
There are lots of things that are going in now, because this climate is quite cold. You'll have plants, unless you're growing in a greenhouse, like we do, that we know we're fortunate to have enough to have our rain. Then you will tend to.
Sorry, I think JB's, you need to mute your mic, JB, please. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll tend to have to, you know, ensure that you propagate your seeds inside, so that they don't die if there's a frost. So a lot of people will start propagation in their homes, or in, you know, warmer places, on their windowsills and so on, and then like take them outside to what could be called cold frames, to get them used to the outside, and then plant them out when we believe the last frost has gone. You know, because we have to kind of like protect them. They are babies, so we have to protect them from the frost, because if they get too cold, then they'll die. Okay.
Okay, I see a lot of the, you know, some of the stores in town here have these sort of little mini glass houses. Those are good. They're good investments.
They are, but you really need to anchor them down. Because they're quite, the metal's quite light. It's quite lightweight metal, and preferably you'd get the hard plastic ones, because the kind of like the ones with the mesh on, they don't last that long. But they will help. They will definitely help.
And things like foxes, they're not.
Fox, you normally get like fox issues. Actually, you do get them kind of, let's see, maybe about June, when the pups come. But what happens is the pups get thrown out of home, off you go, and then they try to make their own den. So they will come and try and dig in your beds. But I think some of this just put some deterrents down. Some people put like bits of stick or something, so that they can't really dig into the beds.
Right. I think, Paula, as we said, this is really just the beginning, but I think I'm so excited about your book, because I know you're working on one, and I think you're so, and I'm sorry. And everybody will want to know from you the planting times, the growing times, even the soil, you know, the types of soil and so on. So I think these are important things that we're going to be sharing as we go along in this series.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So great. William.
Yes.
Over to your turn.
I've been
in terms of your contribution. I mean, Paul, it sort of gave us an idea in terms of the growing and how and the preparation, the soil and the thing. But now that you have the crops, what do you do? You know, what do you do when you have all the crops coming in and so how do you do that?
So before I jump into that, Arlene, if I can just give a little background about myself and how I got involved in this.
Yes.
Thank you. So my name is William. I work as an associate consultant with the Ubele initiative. And essentially I was brought in to work with wonderful people like Paulette, and lots of the other Black Roots team. And essentially what they're trying to do, as you rightly said, Arlene and Paulette, is that essentially pass on these skills that you've had. In your case, it's been passed on from your father, from your grandfather, to the younger generation. And as you pointed out, Arlene, that the younger generation now don't really have a passion and a love. It's almost seen as it's not seen as a career move for many persons to go into garden, to go into healthy living and all the rest of it. So for those persons who have chosen this route, from what Paulette's been saying, it's basically, it's a labor of love. It's something that you enjoy doing, and you've been doing it for so long, and you can pass on those skills. But there's a technical side, there's a business side to it. And
before you go into business, I just want to say, and people like Paulette have been doing a fantastic job in just gathering all this enthusiasm around her so that she can really make sure that the knowledge is out there, and particularly the young people in the youth clubs and at schools, gardening clubs. Go on, William, sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely. So where I come into this basically is to take groups and collectives like what Paulette belongs to, and move them to a level or a space essentially where they can grow on either upscaling, they can upscale their produce, or they can move into a commercial setting. And to move into a commercial setting, yes, you're still doing it for the love and the passion of what it is that you do, but then there's more of a focused, planning, structured approach. So you need to create planting and harvesting plans. You need to create crop yields. You need to be savvy with Microsoft Excel, which you may not be so used to.
I'm useless at that.
You understand? So all of these things will help with the planning process. So this is where I'll come in and basically helping to get the capacity building.
What do you mean by crop yields, William?
Well, I'm going to let Rachel later on expand on that, because that's her expertise. But essentially, like I said, I'm new to this. Essentially, it's the planning process of, regarding the land that you have available, and what crops you can get from it, how you can prepare and plan to make sure that you're taking care of seasonality, or you're taking into account the seasonality of particular plants, and you're growing to meet that seasonality, and you're growing to meet a certain yield for those particular plants. But like I said, this is not my strong field. I was glad to see Paulette nodding in the group.
It's about how much you can get from the space that you're growing in, and then look at, in terms of the harvest, you'll find out how much profit or how much money you can make from that yield. So at the moment, with Black Roots, you can do one tray, and one tray will be, I don't know, 400, 500 beetroot, for example. And then if all of those propagate, then you'll have to work out how much per bunch you're going to sell. That is, how many will be in that bunch, and then how much, because you're using organic principles, how much you can sell that for. It's quite an interesting
it's an interesting journey. How much for me, and how much from a friend, and how much for Auntie, and how much for the market.
When you're used to doing it, how much, people normally
the good thing is that,
and they'll buy, and then when you have extra, then you might want to sell that extra, or somebody else will come and get it. But this is about, this box is this big. The produce needs to be this much apart to grow properly, and then taking into consideration how much fails, if how much of it might fail, then you will have your crop, and then how much you can get that crop for, and then how you're going to support that soil to see whether you can get 2 crops in 1 year from that.
What's brilliant about what Paulette's just shared is that intuitively, she knows how to do all of these things. She's been doing it for so many years. It's something that just comes so naturally to you, which is brilliant. So my role, is to answer your question, Arlene, is to take that into more of a business scientific approach, to say, to put that in Excel sheets, to put that in a planning basis, so that's a third party can actually see that information. We don't have to go to Paulette for that information. A third party like Rachel can see that, and then they can use that information to plan their, their distribution and all the rest of it. So it's critical that I work with groups like Black Roots. It's critical that we work with groups like that are looking to use their excess of crops that they have to then maybe sell on to, like you said, maybe to family or whatever. But if they want to scale up and move commercially, this will be the next step.
Yeah.
And so this is my involvement and this is my role, and it's been really exciting working with such skilled people.
That's great. So every farmer has to have their little business component.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're serious about doing it commercially, you have to.
Right, and then so then from Paulette to William and the business advisory, then we move to Rachel, who is going to make us know what to do with all this food. Hi, Rachel.
Hi everyone. I run a organic veg box scheme called Crop Drop, which is based at Wolves Lane as well, with Black Roots and the Ubele initiative. So we've been running a veg box scheme in Haringey for about 8 years, and so we all our veg box operations happen at Wolves Lane, but we also grow. We have a grower who grows in one glass house at Wolves Lane as well, specifically for the box scheme. And then we buy in the majority of the produce from small farms just outside of London. We kind of aim to get most of what we prioritize farmers that are in the kind of surrounding counties like Essex, Kent, Norfolk, Suffolk. Ideally within 60 miles, but sometimes you have to go further out, especially like right now when you're in the Hungry Gap and there's not much British produce. We're buying more from Europe at the moment. But what we're all about is supporting sustainable food growing and community scale food systems, like short supply chains where we're connecting farmers directly with the communities they're feeding. And so, when you're looking to buy from if you're looking to sell produce, selling to a box scheme can be a really easy route to market, because you have to choose your box scheme carefully, because there's lots of different kinds of box schemes. There's the big Riverford and Abel and Cole, which have hundreds of thousands of customers across the country, and then there's quite a lot of new schemes that are coming out now, actually, since COVID, because the catering industry, was so disrupted by COVID. Lots of producers were looking for other routes to market, and so there's lots of new little box schemes that have set up, or just kind of different food boxes with a mixture of cheese and milk and veggies and bits and bobs. So there's loads out there. But I'm part of a network of small values-driven box schemes called the Better Food Traders, which is a network, and it's also a accreditation scheme. And that's really small community-based food retailers that are prioritizing working with sustainable farmers, creating short supply chains and just basically supporting a more sustainable.
Rachel, how do you know what is to go into a veg box? Is it just what you have, or is there a prescribed things that you put into a veg box?
Well, it's a bit of both, really, because there's we're guided by the season, so it's very much farmer focused. We're committed to buying from local farmers and really working with what the land and the climate can produce where they're based. So the weather really dictates what we buy. It's whatever's actually available. So things like tomatoes, we have we only really have tomatoes in the veg box scheme from July through to October, and the rest of the year we can only really source them from Spain and Netherlands in hot houses. So we just don't buy them unless we can get them UK. So, but we do have, so yeah, we're kind of, it's seasonal. So we're led by what the farmers have available, but it's also, there is a kind of, yeah, I guess a lot of box schemes will be, they'll have, you know, your core staples. So like carrots, potatoes, onions, and then there's usually a leafy green like cabbage or salad or spinach and things like that. And then, you know, other things that are, you know, more interesting things that are seasonal. So it kind of varies. And some veg box schemes, you can pick and choose what you want. But ours is very much like everyone gets a fixed, you know, you just get what you're given.
And it's like what, every week, you know, veg boxes are not really sort of culturally within the Black community generally. So
no, but there are some Afro-Caribbean box schemes,
which is what I was just going to say, that you were used to sort of putting money together and somebody goes to the market and buys a lot of things and then comes back and distributes it. So it's a similar principle, but it's just, you know, so your veg boxes in trying to sort of let a lot more people, you know, within the communities know about how to go about accessing a veg box. How do we get it?
How do you find a veg box?
Yes, how do I find a veg box, and how do I find a veg box scheme?
Well, I would always recommend going to the Better Food Traders website to find people in that network. And they're mostly London based, but there are the network's growing, and there's, you know, box schemes all over the country. So I'll put that in the chat box, the website. In terms of like Afro-Caribbean specific veg box schemes, I know there's a few out there, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. But I'm sure I can check my WhatsApp and put them in the comments, you know, in the when we put this out on YouTube, because there are a few more.
We're live.
We're live. Oh God. Google it. I'm sure you'll find some. But yeah, so really often it's just about like recommendations and word of mouth as well. But yeah, and it's also about working out what's important to you. Is it the kind of produce you're getting? Like people come to Crop Drop because the thing that our customers care the most about is getting local produce, and organic. It's really important that it's organic, and that it's a locally based scheme. So they really like that they can get some produce that's grown in Haringey. But then the other people have different preferences. So like I would always just go to Google. There's also Big Barn, which is another portal which has lots of listings of different like veg box schemes and other kind of like farmers that are selling direct to people. So that's a good way to find things.
I think we can find some and make the listing. If people really want to know, we can put that as part of what we're doing on this series.
Develop a listing. That's a really good idea.
I think really this is just an introduction, because I see a few questions who are that people are asking about the veg box scheme and about what goes in them. And I think people want to know, I mean, I certainly want to know, how do I tell whether something is grown organically or if it's just a brand name or a label, and if a box comes to you. You know, there are all sorts of questions.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, you can't always tell from the look or the taste whether something's organic. And accreditation and certification is the best way to guarantee things. And the Soil Association is the most renowned and trustworthy. Well, not trustworthy, the most, well, also trustworthy, but is the most strict organic certification out there in the UK.
Yes.
We're not actually Soil Association certified as a scheme, but all of our suppliers are Soil Association certified, all the farmers we work with, apart from our grower at Wolves Lane, who is growing organically but we haven't got the certification yet, because with small, when you're growing on small pieces of land, like a lot of small growers are growing organically, but they just like certification takes quite a lot of like admin, and there's a fee, and it takes a while to build up to that. So so we kind of, if a grower isn't certified, we could still consider working with them, but it would mean us having like a really like close relationship with them, so we can go and visit and we can be sure that they're growing organically, because there will be people out there, chances, that will like, you know, use a bit of chemical spray here and there and be like, oh yeah, it's organic, and we can't risk that. So we only take non-organic, like non-certified organic produce if we know the grower really well. But yeah, so like thinking about growers and selling your produce to a box scheme. I mean, the advantage of a box scheme is that like ours is that the customers have a lot of commitment to the scheme, so they pay in advance for the month ahead. So we have a really good idea of how many customers we're buying for every week, and we can look, and it stays very stable. So we can kind of predict over the year, and it means that we can really commit to the farmers. So farmers will they'll plan for us, and they'll grow like specific crops for us, and we're not going to let them down. We're not going to change our mind at the last minute and say, you know what, you've just grown a whole load of stuff, but we don't want it. And we do have, I do know farmers that have actually had those experiences where they're growing for, you know, big supermarkets. And, you know, there's one grower I know who he grew a whole field of courgettes for a supermarket, and then he sent it off to the wholesaler, and they sent it back and said, oh, it's got some blemishes on it, we don't want it. And, you know, and that's the point where he decided, I'm not going to sell to supermarkets anymore because my business can't sustain it. It's just like, you know, when you've got fresh produce, you've got to shift it really fast, and you know, you lost a lot of money. So the way we operate is we're very much about, if we want a sustainable future where we can all eat, then we need to look after our farmers, and our farmers aren't very well looked after in this country. So the other thing is about paying the farmers a fair price. So we work with our farmers to set prices and make sure that it's enough for them to be able to pay themselves properly and their staff, and invest in their business. So so for instance, the supermarket dominated grocery market, which, by the way, supermarkets dominate over 95% of the grocery market. They're very much in control. In that system, farmers get about 9% of the customer's pound for their fresh produce, whereas in our system, the farmers get about 56% of the customer's pound.
Right. And by farmers, you're saying growers yeah. That you're associated with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that just means, and we're able to do that because it's short supply chains. We're small businesses. We don't have big CEOs and shareholders. We just make sure that, like, most of the money that comes into the business from the customers goes back out to the farmers, and which is how I think it should be, but sadly it isn't. So yeah, and then I guess another thing, that a reason why it's good for small scale growers to sell to box schemes is because we're talking about economies of scale. So big supermarkets or bigger box schemes, they're growing in they're not growing, they're buying huge quantities, and it's very hard for them to deal with the small orders that the smaller growers might have, whereas we can be more flexible because we're to a point.
So the veg box scheme is a real option for Black growers, for small, who have definitely got access to sort of the large farms. I mean, it's only one or two, and we're mostly urban in our farming. So maybe creating our own sort of line of veg box schemes, or finding out in the community where there are veg box schemes, and trying to link into that scheme. So we're trying to link up. Now you've grown it and you've got your excess, and if you can you need a guaranteed supply, don't you, though, for veg box scheme? You can't have it 1 week you get this and then the next week you get that.
Well, yeah, there needs to be some consistency. And I mean, with most box schemes, they'll have a range of suppliers. So if one supplier can't fulfill an order, they can
Right.
give someone else. But you know, it's also a great way to just, if you are growing in an urban setting, it's just being able to sell into a box scheme is a really great, especially if it's at a local one. It's a great way to just really connect with your community as well. You're like, your food's going direct to your local community, and that's
amazing. And it's definitely one way in a lot of our allotment growers. Well, I know, you know, a lot of people who grow in community gardens, let me not speak and say that, have got excess and would probably be very, very happy to look at a way of earning some extra income, two, connecting with the community. A place like Wolves Lane up in Haringey is just an amazing place for community gathering, and you know, the plant sales and the lunch and just the camaraderie that exists there. A way of getting out into the open is a really good thing, and to contribute to a veg box scheme and to volunteer. To learn to grow with people like Paulette, who are doing amazing things in growing. So
I mean, the other thought is that we did have a system we did have a market in Haringey a few years ago, the Knoll Park market, where they did have a stall that was called the Urban Growers Collective, and that was where allotment holders from the local areas could all bring their crops to that one stall and sell in that market. And so that just kind of takes the pressure off, because if you're trying to run a market stall at a farmer's market, you've got to have that's quite an operation, having that volume of produce. But if you're all pulling your crops together, then that's quite a good way to have a.
And there's some restaurants that will do that as well, isn't there? There's some, Paulette, do you sell any of your excess into restaurants or anything like that?
Not recently, but we have like pizza shops, and independent pizza shops will have some small restaurants will have, and some independent grocers will have food from us.
Can I just go back on a point that Rachel brought up about the stall rather, in Tottenham? I think that's a great idea, to have a market stall that, you know, persons that have allotments can bring their excess. I think that's a really great way. And for persons, I think that's a business idea for anybody that wants to look at it as a business opportunity, because all they need to be able to do is to link with allotment owners, find out what excess they would have and when, plan some kind of seasonality around that, and have it in the markets to go. The next stage they can do is that they can design some kind of veg box schemes. And with the pervasiveness of social media and the internet now, they can then, once persons have come to the market stores, they can promote it. They can use that opportunity to give out leaflets and let other persons know that now you don't have to physically come to the stores, you can order it online and it can be delivered as well. So there are so many opportunities for what, you know, Paulette's talking about, for what Rachel businesses as well, for persons who are looking to scale up or to sell on their excess products, to use a creative way, because you can't be growing the products as well and selling it. It's just a lot of work. So you need to work and forge partnerships with those persons that can concentrate on those avenues. So I step back, I jump in there.
Well, I suppose that's an interesting point. And talking about financially, how it's probably quite useful for me to give you an insight into financially how our food growing works for the box scheme. Because we have one grower that currently grows at Wolves Lane, and they do 1.5 days a week, and they have a glass house at Wolves Lane, which is about 260 meters squared, and some outdoor space. And over the course of a year, they produce probably about 6% of what we put in our veg boxes, because we're ordering in about 1,500 kilos of veg every week for our customers. We have about 400 weekly customers. So we're on the smaller scale of box schemes. And so, yeah, last year, I think we produced about £7,000 worth of produce for the box scheme. So that's like 1.5 days a week of time into 160 meters squared. So yeah, it takes a lot to grow produce and on the kind of small scale that we're doing. But I think if you do kind of team up with other growers, then that can help. And I'm trying to give you a bit more details. Yeah, so when we're buying for a box scheme, we're kind of when we're buying from a grower, we're kind of ideally looking for someone that can produce like maybe at least 50 portions of something a time. And it's best to kind of look at crops that are like high yielding. So tomatoes and beans and cucumbers are great because they keep fruiting. You can get a lot off that crop and they grow tall, so they don't need as much ground space. Salads and leafy greens that are cut and come again are a great one that a lot of London growers sell because they can like keep producing, and they're a high value crop, so you can sell them for more money than say like potatoes or the staples that you can't get a huge amount of money for. So that's the kind of the things that we work with our grower to grow for us.
That's really useful. So those kinds of things would be in a veg box.
Yeah. I mean, those are the kind of things we grow for our veg box, but then we have all kinds of things like broccoli and squashes and my mind goes blank now. What do we put in? Celery and all kinds of peppers. But we kind of focus on in the London growers, like with small patches of land, those high value crops. So because it costs a lot to live in London, so we've got to like try and make the most of it.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, thanks. I mean, I think what I'd like to do is that JB's here and she's going to take us through what you do with the stuff in the veg box. But we have some questions that perhaps we should take so that then we can finish up with JB and then let her do her fabulous meal and her fabulous thing. And she's got a really good profile on that. So while we're balancing out, JB, is that all right? Can I just take the questions first?
Oh, absolutely. That's wonderful. I was having internet issues.
I saw that.
I was trying to log on. I came off. So please keep talking.
Just don't go away. So what?
If I leave, it's the internet. It's never happened before, but please carry on. I'm all ears.
Okay, so we're going to just take the questions and then we'll go straight into you. All right?
Wonderful.
Okay. All right, William, do you want to address some of those questions?
I do, but before we go into the questions, I just want to raise a point that was raised by Cerise John, which I think is a very good one. It speaks to the veg box schemes, and she suggested, why not create a scheme that gives out random assortments of fruits and vegetables to people, as people like, surprises, boxes of surprises, and that way the boxes stay exciting and the veg or the fruit changes week by week, and it takes the pressure off of supply and to demand that doesn't align with gardens and growth and seasonality. So I thought that's a great way as well. Not maybe for Rachel's schemes, because your veg box specifically are for, you supply specifically to those customers who are demanding particular seasonal vegetables. But I'm just talking for other, veg box schemes. That would be a great way in which to bring that in. So I wanted to share that before we go on. The first question I think I'm going to pose to the team is from Leon Thompson. And it says, how do you know where to get good quality non-GMO seeds? So I'm going to send that to Rachel or to Paulette.
Yeah, there are a number of like seed companies that that I use personally. One of them is called Real Seeds, and they make their own. They grow their own, mostly their own seeds, and they are. You can see that they're certified. There's one that we've been introduced to recently called Tamar. And again, on the packet, you can see that it says like that the seeds are organic. If you are going to buy seeds, maybe from your regular supermarket, Wilco, whatever, you just need to stay away from kind of like F1 seeds, and then also go to when you go and there are lots of different companies that are kind of like on the internet, and then you look and find out whether those people are if their seeds are certified organic.
Thank you for that, Paulette. The next question is, what is the panel's view on dig or no dig?
Ooh.
And then again, to the experts.
I've tried both. The people, we talk about no dig, and when people talk about no dig, they talk about it's about keeping all the microorganisms kind of like secure in the space and not disturbing them and that kind of thing, and it's kind of like putting this kind of every year you kind of like put layers and layers on, or you just got to do a little scrape or something, and I've kind of like done that. I mean, people growing all sorts of kind of like things as well, like people growing hay and things like that. And there's a lot of people now that are working and growing in well rotted wood chip. You know, you don't grow in wood chip before it's kind of like 18 months, but what wood chip does, it kind of acts as a mulch, and it does a few things. It protects your soil, so it keeps it. It rots down, so it keeps your soil fed. But it also reduces the amount of weeding that you have to do. And in the winter, it will keep your crops cool. In the winter, it keeps your crops warm, and in the summer, it will keep your crops cool. And it will also reduce the amount of watering that you have to do. So that's really good. But you know, for people who do dig, then there's people that will dig, and then they'll feed their soil with lots of different things, like natural foods, worm castings, all different kinds of things, and ensure that kind of like they put the nutrients into the soil in that way. Especially people who grow in boxes, because if you're going in raised beds, then the raised beds aren't connected to the soil, then normally what happens is that you deplete the nutrients that are in that soil quicker than it would be if it was kind of like out there and connected to the land.
So I suppose they're asking, do you have a preference? Because you said you've done both.
Do I have a preference? I dig, because I dig and then I feed my soil. I feed my soil every year. I feed some of the soil I'll feed, and I put the soil to bed. Some of it goes to bed, and the rest of it then grows crops for the winter.
Excellent. Thank you, Paulette. Arlene, that's the questions for this section. So we can quite happily go to JB if she's ready. So I'll hand it back to you.
Okay. Yeah, she's ready. It looks like she's ready. So in this section, what we're going to do is to say, okay, so you've bought a crop box, you've bought this veg box, and you brought it home, and what are you going to do with it? And we felt that, you know, because we wanted to show this, for this to be a presentation about wellness, how we feed our minds, body, spirits, energy, we brought JB, who's my distant relative, really, but she's my sister-in, and we brought her on to just share some of her wellness. And as I keep saying, you know, it's not all about the vaccine. It's not all about our in transiting into the new world way we're living. We have to look at our wellness and our ability to fight any sort of diseases, any sort of germs, by strengthening our temple. And this is what our presentation's about. We would love to know your opinions at the end of it all. So, you know, do we do more? Is this a one-off? Just let us know. So I'm going to hand over to JB. We're going to turn off our screen. We're still here. Okay. And we're with you, but we're going to give her the power and the glory. Thanks, JB. Over to you.
Thank you. So, hi, guys. As Arlene says, yes, we are relatives, distant relatives, but we're sisterins. So my name is JB Rose. And I have a YouTube, and I'm a singer, I'm a vegan, I'm a mum. I've just recently, well, last year I had a single out, which I'm going to sing hopefully at the end of my presentation, called Back to Love, which really talks a lot about what we're saying even today. And I have a real love for cooking, and I got that from my mum. My mum's from Jamaica, and she was brought up in a bakery. Her stepmother taught her everything, and I was always interested in cooking. So when my mum was cooking, I was watching. There's 5 of us, and I think I was the only one that was interested. So I love baking, and then now that I'm a vegan, I've kind of adapted a lot of my mum's recipes to a vegan version, and also just done my own thing because I love cooking. So singing and cooking, I think, is very much the same for me because it feeds the soul. And I'm really pleased that I've been invited, and I'm glad to get things going. So as Arlene said, it's all about building our immunity, eating things fresh from the ground. I have a little garden patch. I do herbs and all that kind of stuff. And today you have your veg box. I don't know if you can see it. And I'm going to be using the swede, some broccoli, some avocado, and I'm making it's like a light snack really. I'm making a veg curry, but what I'm going to do with the veg curry is I'm going to put it in a tart. Yeah, and there's one I made earlier, but we're going to get into it. So first of all, because you're there and I'm here, I'm going to constantly be bringing my food to you so you can see what I'm doing. So first of all, the first thing I'm going to do is make the pastry. So I try again always to use pastry flour that is whole wheat, or even those that I have intolerances, ones without gluten. But today I'm using spelt flour. I don't know if you know how to make pastry, but it's normally half factor flour. So you've got the flour, and if you use, say, 100 grams of flour, well, I'm going to be using 200 grams of flour, then you would do half of that, and you would do 50 if it's 100, or like I said, 200, so it'll be 100 grams of fat. So I have here vegan butter. Vitalite seems to be the only one for me that doesn't have any sneaky animal products in it. And literally, once you've got your flour and your butter together, you're going to make it into breadcrumbs like this, right? And really make it nice and flaky. I'm going to go back a bit so you might be able to see my bowl. And then once you've made it nice and flaky, then you get some water and you bring it together and make it into a dough. Now with pastry, if you want to make it nice and you know, crumbly and has a really nice texture to it, it's always good to try and put it in the fridge. So I have got one already I made in the fridge. So it's nice and cool. Oops. Things are falling on me. Good thing you never saw that. I was out of shop. So I have my pastry here made with spelt flour that I had made earlier, and I'm literally gonna roll it out and make my a circle, and I'm going to put it in a flan dish. So I have one here already, and literally roll it out as thin as you can. Again, I hope you can see what I'm doing. What I try to do, as I said, is I try to make dishes and zhuzh it up a bit. So as I said, it's a veg curry. And then I kind of think to myself, well, how do I make that really, really interesting? So once you roll it out nice and thinly, guys, you then get your flan dish. Now I've just got a little takeaway one, but a nice heavy bottomed porcelain one or ceramic one is also just as good. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get your pastry and you're going to put it in your flan dish like that, and then you're just going to cut the edges around like that. I hope you can see it. Beautiful. So that's my flan. Oh, lovely, 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 lovely. Yeah. And then I don't know if you heard about blind baking, but then what you should do after that is so that your flan base is nice and crispy and not soggy, is put a baking sheet and then put some beans in there just to keep it so it doesn't rise, and then put it in the oven ready for later. So now we're going to get into the veg curry bit now, and I'm sure you all know how to make a veg curry or veg anything, even if you're a meat eater. But what I like to do with my veg curry is I like to warm up my spices before I add in the onions and the garlic and all that kind of stuff. So I like to use coconut oil. Again, it's really healthy, and it's again what my mum used to cook with all the time. And she used to always say to me, especially, I mean, my mum passed now 2 years ago, but she always said, now, you know, all of a sudden coconut oil is really, really fashionable. And my mum said, well, when we first come here, you know, we was told we must use, you know, this vegetable oil and that vegetable oil. And now all of a sudden it's all the rage. But that's what my mum used to grow up on. That's how they cooked everything. They made their own vegetable oil, etc. So, you know, I continue the family tradition, and I cook as much as I can with coconut oil because it's really good for you. All right, so I'm going to get my curry powder, and I'm going to heat it up. Salt and some pepper and some smoked paprika, some cumin, and this is way before I haven't put my onions and my peppers and all that and garlic in yet. Yeah, and then I'm just going to let that, and what I'm doing there is releasing all the flavors so that it has that deep, rich taste. You know, when you eat food and the first bite you taste something, the second bite you keep, and as you're eating that one mouthful, you're just tasting so much flavors. Yeah, so I would normally cook that through. Careful not to burn it though. But what you're doing is you're heating up the spices, and then what I have here is I've already pre-done some red peppers and garlic and some onions. And I'm making, you saw how small the flan was. So it's really just for maybe, it's a small portion. But I actually come from a big family. And so I'm actually used to making large portions of things. So that's the onions gone in, garlic and pepper. So again, a few minutes to soften up. And I'm going to show you because I need to. There you go, it's cooking through nicely. And if you were here, smell-o-vision, you'll be smelling the garlic and the curry and the cumin, really, really coming together. Okay, so as I said, we're going to use the swede and the broccoli. Now I've got these lovely tender stem broccoli. So as you can see, here's the swede, and I've got bits of carrot as well. I'm going to put that in there. Before I put in any stock or anything, again, I want to infuse the flavors. And also the swede, I've cut them up very small. Now, these tender stem broccoli, very long. And what we always tend to do is throw away this bit, and this is the good bit. And so I'm actually going to save the top bit for the end part of the dinner, and the rest of it, I'm actually going to chop this up and add this to our curry, because no part of the vegetable is bad for you. It's actually really, really good for you. And when my son, I have a 12-year-old, when he was a baby, like a toddler, he really struggled to go to the toilet. And the pharmacist actually, and he was a vegan and a homeopath, he said, don't throw away any of the skins of anything, cook it, give it to my son. My son had no problem after a while. Also, I don't peel carrots either because of the same reason. So I'm also adding in the stems of the broccoli. And then I have some ready-made stock, vegetable stock. And there I am. I'm gonna cook that through. And that will be cooking for about 10, 20 minutes or so. Just so that all the vegetables are cooked. And then, because I'm going to put it in a tart, I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of corn flour in this mixture just to thicken it. Yeah. And then when that's all cooked, it's going to go into the flan, right? So I'm going to show you how I do that in a minute. I'm not sure how I'm doing for time. Arlene, how am I doing for time?
You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Just keep going.
Keep going. All right, because I don't have a clock or anything, so.
You're good. You're good. I'm
good. Beautiful. So as an accompaniment to our tart, which is going nicely, I do love, and I don't know if you've heard that, you know, when we eat, we must eat the rainbow colors, the colors of the rainbow. So I'm gonna grate some. I'm gonna make basically I'm gonna make a coleslaw, and I don't know where the there it is. See, I am organized. So I've got my grater, and I'm gonna just grate up. I'm gonna make a coleslaw, but I'm making a healthier coleslaw. So I don't know if you know what's in mayonnaise and salad cream, but even the vegan ones, lots and lots of oil, lots of emulsifiers, and really not good stuff, really. So I have a great friend of mine who he's a party planner. He does lots of events and parties and stuff. And he was the one that was going, oh my God. He said, coleslaws are so unhealthy. And he then showed me what he does, and it's so delicious. So he literally grates, he grates the cabbage. And then, as I said, I've got this carrot, I've already washed it, but I'm not peeling it because, as I said, all the goodness is underneath that carrot. You peel it off, you you've lost some stuff. So I'm gonna peel my carrot. I'm gonna grate my carrot like that. So I'm just gonna do enough for me. And so here it is. I've just peeled and so I've just grated the two. And I'm gonna mix it so you can see it. And then what's gonna give it the beautiful taste is lemon and lime. Yeah, so if you put loads and loads of lemon and lime, your coleslaw will be so lovely and refreshing, and not so much calories, and also all that yucky stuff. I call it yucky stuff. I've got young ones, so I keep saying, I speak like them sometimes. Yucky stuff in it. So here goes the lime. I'm just squeezing in my lime now. Yeah, and then loads and loads of herbs. So again, these are the things that's gonna give it that zing, because we're used to a certain flavor, right? Taste. Now, fresh herbs is always better, but also dried herbs. Also, what's good about dried herbs is sometimes it brings out the taste of the herbs. So I do like fresh herbs. I've got my herb patch, but I'm going to be using dried herbs today in my coleslaw. A little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper, and literally, guys, this is how I make my lovely healthy coleslaw, and we're beginning to create the colors of the rainbow for our plate of food that we're going to make, right? So where we are coming, so I know part of your veg box you've got an avocado, so I've already got an avocado already there, and I'm going to add our lovely coleslaw to our plate. And then, as I said, I have got our flan, one I made earlier, here. And I'm going to now place it up, really. And so you can see what it looks like, can't you? You can see. Oh, and I also put kale on top as well. So what's inside of this, of course, is the corn flour. That's what's giving it the nice base. And then you've got the kale, the carrots, the swede, and it's absolutely delicious, yeah? I also added some yeast flakes as well. So if you fancy yeast flakes, you can do that too. I'm going to cut my lovely flan. I'm going to be very generous with it. And whoa, this is our lovely plate of food. In fact, I think I was so worried about time. I might have done.
You didn't have to worry,
I didn't have to worry, did I? I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. So look, can you see our plate of food? We've got our lovely coleslaw that we made without any yucky stuff. Then we have our flan, and we've got our lovely, lovely, lovely avocado and some salad there. And this could be lunch, dinner, and if you want to even add rice to it, that's fine. But this is a lovely, healthy meal.
That looks really good with all the colours.
Yes, yes. Lovely.
So Rachel, look, we've got another thing. Do you do, Rachel? Do you do avocados in the crop box?
Yeah, they are actually in season. European avocados are in season right now. Their season is winter, so like February through to November through to like February, March. So yeah, we are doing avocados right now.
Lovely.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
that was all completely
that's fabulous.
seasonal.
Hold up that plate again.
What plate?
Hold up that plate. I think we need to take some pictures or something. That's really, really good. What do you think of that, Rachel?
Sorry?
What do you think of that plate?
It's so creative. I love it. Like, because that's all winter vegetables, but you've turned it into something actually really like stunning.
Absolutely. So as I said, when you make your veg curry now, and you know what? It's because my kids love pastry. So I always try and put pastry on something. Yeah. I always wrap it in pastry, roll it up, and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, good strategy.
Yeah, it's a strategy. So yeah, so that's the.
Oh.
You know what I love about that, JB? I think it only took. It didn't take half an hour to prepare that, did it? And that's right. And that's like a meal for 4 people based on what I'm seeing there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's really, really, really simple. I use spelt flour. You can use gluten-free flour to make the pastry. A lot of people are always scared about making pastry.
That's me.
It's the easiest thing. It's just half factor flour. So 200 grams of flour, 200 grams of fat. I think what people miss out is the fridge bit. So if you don't put it in the fridge to cool, then you don't get such a nice pastry. So, you know, that you'll be fine if you give it a try.
Yeah. And you know, when we start back the Wolves Lane selling food, selling the plant sales, maybe we can do some flans, because we could do them. Yeah, that could be pre-made and sold, and you can take home a flan as well.
Absolutely, and it's really easy. As I said, I made it quickly just before, and I thought, even I was shocked at how quick it was. I was trying, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I know you're going to sing us out before we leave, but are there any questions we should ask? If there are anybody, that's lovely. You know what? It's so important that we eat well.
Yes.
And that we feed all parts of us, and you know that we actually, it's not a lot that we need to eat, but it's good food we need to eat, and food that this is all part of us, particularly our Caribbean, African, Asian communities who are living in diaspora conditions, living in urban areas. We're not getting the time to or just to be able to grow our own food, pick our own things. The cheapest supermarkets are usually the ones that you go and grab whatever is easiest, and it's not always feeding our constitution and building our resilience.
Yeah.
And what we're about is our wellness and our building our resilience. Are there any questions while we're before we let JB just sing us out? And we do want to know if people think this is a good idea, if we should, because we want to focus on the growing techniques. I think Paulette should have her own section where she's, you know, shows you. I'm really curious about that, because I know a lot of people right now are looking to how they can actually get the pot, get the dirt, get the herbs or the whatever it is, if you're inside, or turn your grass garden into growing space. And Rachel, I think everything that you said with regard to how you put together the business, Rachel and William, that business of getting, how do you get your excess? How can you turn your time into cash? How can you come together to create something? Because this isn't an individual thing. And JB, we've already had a request that you should have your own show, but we do have Ubele have their own. We have our thing called Diaspora Kitchens, which we certainly will invite you to come and do your own presentation and share with us. So, there's a question. William, do you see that one?
Oh, William, you're muted.
You're muted, yeah.
My apologies. So the first question is, do you need a greenhouse to grow avocado? And I assume that's for you, Paulette.
I haven't successfully grown avocados in this country, but given the right conditions, you would probably need a greenhouse. I know of an elder that's bringing us a plant soon, and she's grown that plant outside. So there are plants that can acclimatize, but as yet I don't know anyone that's grown an avocado.
We have one in the palm house at Wolves Lane.
Yeah,
but it hasn't
given fruit.
Given any fruit, yeah.
Yeah, and just to say, there is a beautiful palm house at Wolves Lane, and there's also a cactus house. There's a JB, you might be interested. We have a cactus expert at Wolves Lane.
Oh.
Yeah, he makes all sorts of dishes using cactus. You must come by one day. Yes, he cooks the cactus. He prepares it sometimes by raw, not just cooked. Oh, wow. So, you know, that's a fabulous thing in itself. For those of us who can only grow cacti. William, there's another question.
Yeah, so there's another question. So I think this one is for you, JB. It says, do you use salt in your cooking?
Not that much. I try my best to flavor it up with herbs, fresh and dried. Yeah, I try not to. My dad's a diabetic, and so he is also my kind of source of, when I cook for him, I always cook on a Sunday. I try and add lots of herbs and kind of take away the salt. He hasn't complained. And so yeah, I try not too much. And the same with sugar. I do like baking a lot. And I have a YouTube site called JB Rose Singing Vegan Mum. And if you go on there, you would see that I always replace it with other sugars, alternative sugars like agave or coconut sugar, which is really, really good. Because my dad loves cake. And if I don't make it, he'll go and buy it at the shop. So I try and make it, and it will last for the week sort of stuff. So sugar and salt, I try and bring it down, and even for my children as well.
There are also some plants that you can grow that are quite salty. So if you grow red or pink celery, that's quite salty, and you can use that as, like, they dry that and you can use that as a salt. Or there's a plant that we grow called saltbush, and saltbush in itself is very salty, so you can use that and mix that into your herbs to replace their salt.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, lovely. Yeah.
So where do you get like a saltbush is local to the UK?
Saltbush, yeah. We've grown saltbush for many years, and it grows in kind of like, it doesn't mind the conditions.
It's a bush.
It's a bush. And it grows like at this time of year that it's very plentiful.
Oh, lovely! Is it like an evergreen?
And it can be grown from cuttings as well. So
lovely.
Okay, that's it looks like you have an order, Paulette. JB said she'd like some. I think we can deliver it in a crop box for you. Anything else? Is there any?
For the time being, there are no more questions. I think they've been answered so far. But to the persons listening, the attendees, if you do want to ask any more questions, if you can please add it in a chat, and I'll make sure I ask those to the panelists before we go. So back to you.
Great. So are we ready for JB? Tracy, do you have anything that you think that we need to let people know? Just really in terms of feed forward. We have to give thanks for Ubele for coordinating this session for us. And as I said, it's the first. So we really are hoping that we can build on this and take it to another level. We do have exciting people lined up. We have people who are cultivating plants for their for the herbs. We have people doing it for the wellness, for the essence, for the spirituality of it, for all different kinds of, not just to ingest but to rub on your skin. People who are dealing with things for hair, the cactus again, tuna and rosemary. These are things that we can use. So it's Tracy has put to join our mailing list. Keep in touch with all the updates that we have at Ubele. And again, Ubele is concerned with business development, with capacity building, with supporting small businesses, recruitment, volunteer work, information. So just keep in touch with us that way. Thank you all for joining us and sharing with us. JB,
yes.
I'm going to hand it over to you. Congratulations, by the way, on your nomination. Is it the Oscars? Is it the Grammys?
It's called the People's Choice Awards. I've been nominated in 3 categories. So.
Okay.
So I'm still here. If you don't see me on here, I'm going to keep talking so you don't think I've gone away.
Okay, Rachel, thank you so much. Paulette, you have to be a mainstay in this because people are we have been asked to detail out a lot more things. And William, I think yes, go ahead. You're muted.
I was going to say before they go, I've just seen another question. So just before, sorry, JB, I know you've got your mic ready. One last question I think is important. From Leon Thompson again, he says, this is really fantastic idea, should definitely continue. He says, just one thing, we work to get crops organic, but chemtrails and pollutants in the atmosphere are a real threat. What can we do? That's the question.
Maybe that's a question for the next show.
It's a question. I mean, I built my own greenhouses. I built my own greenhouse, but again, some of that is because I've insulated them so that I can grow like crops like the yam and so on. It's really about keeping the soil that you plant your things in healthy, and finding a way to wash them when they are have been harvested, because like the chemtrails are, I mean, you can make like big like growing spaces if you want to keep everything under cover.
Yeah, I mean, testing your soil is really important, and I mean, I know some. There was a London grower that wanted to grow salad for us, but they were very near to a busy junction, so they got their leaves. They sent their leaves off to a lab to be tested, and they found that there was the toxic load was too high because they were so close to a big junction of two main roads, and so they had to just abandon that kind of idea of selling the crops. And so that there is, we're lucky at Wolves Lane that we're set back in a quieter area, but there's not a huge amount we can do as individuals. We just, as citizens, we need to keep campaigning and putting pressure on the government to really take air pollution seriously. But I do understand that. I think I'll have to check this with Paulette, that most crops will they'll filter out a lot of the chemicals, and that it's more, you need to worry more about the chemicals in the soil, like heavy metals and things like that. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's cleaning I mean, if you're close to a main road, it's just hard. It's really hard, and a lot of people that are in those positions, they'll grow a lot of like root crop, but yeah, you just have to try and filter out things. And I think that the more you feed your soil, is like the healthier your crop will be. But it in this space, it's quite difficult not to be affected, and best to grow a lot of stuff under cover.
Okay.
Very useful.
All right, thanks for that. JB, sorry to interject at the last minute and spoil your flow.
Fine, no problem. So tell me if you can hear this. Here we go.
So you sing when you're cooking, don't you?
I do. So many rainy days, I know I got bills to pay. I'm high enough to make the call and make things go away. Right, I'm gonna stop because my music doesn't sound good. And I want you to have a good experience. So we're gonna
a song about food.
Well, I'm just gonna run it back, and I'm gonna do this. So many rainy days, I know I got bills to pay. Am I enough to make the cut and make things go away? Always seems to be constant moving. I'm on the go as if for sure, but I'm just standing still. You smile, one step at a time, and you'll see the signs, my love. And even if it takes a while, life can be a trial. Take it to the other side where there's no more stress. Gotta get up now and bring it on back to love. Bring it on back to no regrets. Shaking it off, yeah, and bring it on back to love. Shaking it off now, bring it on back to love. Another morning breaks again, and I ain't slept a wink. It's on my mind, another life's been taken, can't pretend. Why this seems to be, it's so confusing. I'm at the end where I begin to search for something real. You smile, one step at a time, and you'll see a sign. Oh my love. Even if it takes a while, I can be a trial. Take it to the other side where there's no more stress. Gotta get up now and bring it on back to love. Ooh, bring it on back to no regrets. Shaking it off, yeah, and bring it on back to love. Ooh, bring it on back to love. I know you're tired now, don't feel like showing up. Lean on my shoulder like it's cold, but we can overcome. Can't you see how brave we are? In the face of it all, we'll see the light shine through the dark if we let go and sing it. No more stress. Get up now, bring it on back to love. Oh, bring it on back to no regrets. Shaking it up, yeah. I'll bring it on back to love. Oh yeah, bring it on back now, on back to love. No more stress, on back to love. Oh, bring it on back to no regrets. Get up now, bring it on back to love. Bring it on back now, shaking it off now. Bring it on back to love. I said no more stress. No, 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 no. 'Cause I don't want. I said no regrets. Oh, I'll bring it back to love. And you died, a true died. And you, a true died. And you died, a true. And you, oh, you.
Okay.
Guys,
No stress.
No more stress. Bring it back to love. It came out last year, July, and is now up for an award on the groundbreaking People's Choice Award. And so please vote for me. Also, as I said, I have my own YouTube channel where I cook vegan food, JB Rose Singing Vegan Mum. And I'd like to thank Ubele for inviting me. I've learned so much. I want to find out about that salt bush. I want to know more about the cooking, about the planting stuff. And so I thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, JB. Thank you. And no more stress. And we're bringing it back to love because we have to love ourselves. Right. So give thanks. Give thanks, everyone. It looks as though we've come to an early end, which is a good information for us as well. And we give thanks. Panelists, anything else? You're all muted except Rachel.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, it was just a really great start and just so nice to bring people together and just share our knowledge and hear from the attendees as well. Just such great questions, and yeah, let's just keep the conversation going, I say.
Great.
Yeah, for the people who haven't grown before, people who are just starting their journey, there's just so much out there that you can grow. As I said, you know, we only grow 10% of the seeds that are available to us in this country, so it's just something that you can explore. I would advise to think before you start growing kind of like what you want to eat, and it's important to you know, not just go for the really quite cheap things that you can buy in the supermarket. Just kind of like it gives you the opportunity to explore and expand your diet as well. So, you know, just keep your eyes peeled on this platform, so that we can kind of like give you more information and tips where to go and what you can achieve by growing. Because once you start eating your own produce, you won't want to turn back.
Great. Thanks, Paulette. And maybe what we could do is in the Ubele newsletter, just do a little growing corner.
Yeah.
With tips.
Yeah.
So the question, how can you contact the presenters? Just go straight to the Ubele website, and JB, her website, and everybody else is associated with Wolves Lane Crop Drop. Rachel, do you have a website or a organically?
No, my website is cropdrop.co.uk. So you can find us on there. Just popped it there. Okay. And we're on Instagram as well. So yeah, lots of ways to get in touch.
Great. William?
That's it. I'm just typing in the answer that you just said.
Okay.
I just the panel. Yeah, that's it for me.
And business planning would be through Ubele as well. So,
yes, yes.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.